Hey guys, I'm Mr. Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie, The Creator. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server, where you join, collab, shill, do all that cool stuff for free. And shilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all of that out of the way, let's get into The Creator. Now, I have seen the trailers for this a few times, but I didn't really get a good picture of what this movie was going to be, which I actually think is pretty decent marketing. I like that we get a glimpse of AI, or this robot, and we get a glimpse of some form of protection, at least in the trailer, but to what end, I wasn't really entirely sure. So that made the appeal much more interesting, at least before seeing the movie. After seeing the movie, I can say, oh boy, we got a bit of talking about for this one. So, I'm going to be turning over here because that's where my notes are a little bit. But the movie follows this man named Josh, who's a part of this operation in a joint underground, military espionage type mission, essentially. Now, I'm not really sure on the details of what they were trying to do. It had something to do with AI, and maybe it was to originally capture this weapon, I think. But boy, did they spend a few more minutes elsewhere. But anyway, we get a little bit more information as they make their way there towards this location that they're going to raid, in which we get a little bit of a glimpse of who the commander is, and the amount we get of her is that she lost 2 of her children in this so-called war with AI, and that's about it for that, I guess. And luckily, this movie takes place in 2065, so smartly, this movie has, and the creators at least, had the wherewithal to put this at a futuristic date from now. But you know how it goes. I mean, that is a lot of years from now, so that is a lot of time. However, it would be unfortunate, because I would be around 90 or whatever. Now let's say hypothetically I were still alive, and the AI that we see and technology that we see still hasn't been developed, then oh boy, oof. It always hurts to go by when you see the AI in the movies and you're just like, how are we not there even yet sometimes, you know? It's quite remarkable how forward-thinking movie people can be sometimes, and how, innovative people in technology they're crawling when they should be running, you know? Anyway, back to it. So, we get some old school music here. The musical track in this is just very off. For a futuristic movie, they pick all these old songs from Jupiter and Mars. I most know that song from Bayonetta, unironically enough. So we see that a bomb was dropped down in Los Angeles at some point, and the AI is responsible for this. Now, I'm not sure if this is a flashback or happening simultaneously as their mission. Flashbacks and flash forwards are not very not made very clear in this movie, which is rather unfortunate because I do think that just having that quick bit of information just would save a lot of time and a lot less confusion here. At any rate, with that being placed on the AI, that is what cruxes this war and what gets it. Now, what they're targeting is a person responsible for this AI named Normalia, or Nirmata, rather. So, Josh, being the main character, is initially trying to do that at the very most. So they storm this area where they believe this device to be. He learns that his wife, through comms, that his wife is still alive somewhere out there. At least that's what he sees on a camera. And that, furthermore, so the squad outside of these two, our main protagonist and commander lady, who seems to be primarily doing her job for what I can remember from the movie and from what notes I have. However, some of the other Marine guys are kind of assholes in this. I'm like, huh. They don't really want us to necessarily root for the people the protagonist surrounds himself with, huh? I mean, one of them came really close to literally shooting a puppy. He literally almost failed the puppy test. Like that close. Also, we get another guy who, when they have the people surrounded and have access, and they learn that they can only gain access through someone's face, he implies in a very needlessly crude way that he can remove the face and use it to their advantage to get further in. Now, due to their team being attacked by a revolting AI police force, is essentially the best way of putting this, the teams are split in groups of 3. One of them gets shot down like immediately. The other two, or the other ones, head outside, and the group that Josh is a part of is advancing further ahead. Now, what this leads to is that at the point where Josh is pretty much in front of the door that has access to this so-called weapon, we see that everyone needs reinforcements, so they're divided even more, so Josh is the only one who ends up remaining at said door. With that being said, he opens it, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. He's up in his guard, and he sees our little robot child here. So, yeah. He's trying to figure out how he can even do this, because, I guess it's more complex than just shooting it? I don't know. I mean, other robots seem to at least get dismembered pretty easily throughout the movies, but they seem to still move around in certain cases. So, yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. At any rate, so he sees this child. He's trying to figure all this out. Another shoulder is with him, but nonetheless, he has to, he feels like he has to move, and he's trying to get back to the rest of his squad with what he still considers a robot or a weapon at this point. That being the case, They make contact with some of the colonel, or the woman in control here makes some contact. She is surrounded by some bots, though. And we see this older bot on Joshua's side sort of walk in, make contact with this robot whose name we don't know quite yet. And sees this guy as a threat, that being Josh, and then he pacifies this robot by turning it off another way. The other robots do seem to have this more panel-like thing going on that this particular child robot doesn't seem to have, for whatever reason. So he does that, by the way, by doing some diving down sort of shot where they both have their guns trained on one another. So that old cliche. Anyway, they get to the car, or a vehicle anyway, and I don't really understand how it came to the conclusion that he was suddenly a traitor at this point. I mean, their comms were turned off, and he was simply trying to get directions because he really didn't know how to turn it off, and from that point to him being called a traitor, I'm not really seeing the line that he crossed to get traitor at this point in the movie, if I'm being quite frank. So I have no clue why they did this, other than to create the tension between our main characters and their now chasers, which are the commander and one other individual, and then an army at a later point. But again, the bridge between point A and traitor seems to be completely not answered in the movie. I have no idea. I would consider this a plot hole unless someone can tell me what order did he not do, or I seriously don't know. Anyway, so he's trying to move, and he was trying to get to them, by the way. And again, we eventually learned that the robot's name is Alfie. Like Alpha, but with an E. So, while they make their way to a bridge on their escape, or towards them until they are now considered traitors and they recognize that at a point, Alfie uses a pulse of sorts, sort of a custom-made EMP, as it were, to turn off the bridge, lights and all the stuff that would revolve around technology, so they can charge on ahead. And I think they made their way to another vehicle that had a family in it at some point, so they're just traveling with another group of people. So, as they're traveling together, this is where Alfie begins to ask questions like, where does Josh come from, as in how he was born? And Josh answers pretty frankly, from my parents. And he had mentioned something in the dialogue about heaven at some point within the context. So, she, as Alfie is referred to in the movie anyway, she is asking about what is heaven. So he answers pretty bluntly yet again, saying that it is a peaceful place in the sky. She does seem to just take in this information. I forgot how she learns English. Like, she just sort of adapts it at some point in the movie, because she didn't initially. But I will say they do have this handy-dandy future device that we still don't have in 2023. A device that instantly translates what you say from one language to another. How the fuck are we in 2023 and we have not developed this level of technology? It's nuts. I'm telling you. The future just has so many possibilities, and yet we are so far behind. It is embarrassing. Sometimes. Ugh. Anyway, that's one AI thing I think we should have, unironically. Like, I would actually support that future of being able to have a device that just allows you to instantly understand someone else's language. I think that would clear a whole lot of stuff up. It would just make countryside visiting and going elsewhere in the world just so much more easier, quite frankly. It would be so much more beautiful in that world, but we don't live in that world, even in 2023. Amazing how fucking slow we are at technology. Anyway, I sigh because I am sad that we don't have this level of technology. Anyway, as they continue to travel, let's see, she is brought to a tech expert that he trusts. And Alfie makes the claim that she wants all the robots to be free, because they're all being hunted down as of right now. And there are other robots with humanoid faces at the very most, and humanoid sort of body frames. So, probably in reference to all of them in particular. The only other distinction of robot between that and, like, technology we already have are, like, these same bots, but they're the only things that are, like, more robotic in nature are their heads. Anyway, so they're there for a bit, but the cops locate their location. I forget how. And the captain and her partner are with them. I don't know the partner's name, and I don't know the other guy's name that Josh was with, honestly. But unfortunately, the repairman is shot at, and so is the person, or robot rather, that he was with. And I will say at this point, though, not fully robot, it is very clear that Josh has some level of robotic prosthetic arm in this movie. But the information we did glean from this is that this particular AI would have the capacity to learn, grow, and yes, control other AI, which is what was posed as her being this so-called ultimate weapon even in the first place. So they try to move in. He counterattacks when they're all focused on the robot. And when this is where the movie starts to get a little bit wonky, he learns that his wife is the one that has been referred to as Nirmata, or the creator of these AI, which I think was passed down from somebody else, if I remember the lore of this movie correctly. Anyway, he manages to escape via boat because they're still being chased. And while on boat, he gets, like, accosted by the robot police, but he, like, finagles underneath the water and then underneath the boat to travel with the robot, Alfie, and other robots that are there. Um, so, with that being established, they move on ahead to this like city where a whole lot of these robots are being, uh, are just living with alongside the people there. Um, bu- 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 Hold on, I'm getting lost in my notes here. Yeah, so he's trying to get her to, well, now, mother, as, so now they have a deeper connection now that they are connected via her, instead of with nothing at all. Seems to be the indication of the movie is trying to imply here. That goes even deeper as the movie progresses, as we learn. Uh, let's see. Oh my god, I keep getting. Sorry about this. So, unfortunately, the military, the commander aren't so far behind. They start throwing smoke grenades, and then they roll up with some reinforcements, which are these huge ass tanks. And they start to decimate this little town. And Alfie sees this and wants to put a stop to it. One of the bomb robots goes through. The second one is halted by her directly and stopped, at least temporarily speaking. Um, duh, 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 duh. But yeah, more bots get wrecked, no surprise there. Still in that process of this little skirmish. And we learn at some point that this particular AI, and what makes it so significantly different from other AI, is that it was combined with a human embryo, or at least that's what the movie is presenting here. So this is like a correlation between what would happen if, you know, if biology and the antithesis start of technology were coerced at the same time is sort of, I think, the intention of this. At least that's what I'm gauging from the movie. And this is what allows Elfie to express more human emotion, like crying, as we see throughout the movie. And also being able to learn things as a human, quote unquote, even though closer to AI still. Or some split between the two. I'm not really sure which this would even fall under, with it being a human embryo that was used. Like, what is the implications of that? I really don't know. That is that is an interesting, pondering question, I suppose. One of those sort of bigger questions of like, what would that even mean? You know. Anyway, uh, so yeah. Uh, we cut to some point later in the future, and I'm not sure, again, not sure how much even time passes or whatever, but he suddenly has a way more spiritual vibe going on, and again, from point A to spirituality, I'm like, I'm not really sure how we got here either. I'm lost a little bit, but okay, we're doing this now. and he's still trying to get to his wife, and he does so actually. And the commander, still chasing, catches up. They have a standoff. And they're still referring to Alphys as this weapon, of course. And they are then separated due to this level of being outnumbered. However, the people that are trying to turn Alfie off seemingly can't seem to do so with what technology they have, and they force him back to where she is, saying that she has made it so that he is the only one who is authorized to turn her off in a, as they put it, humane way anyway. So this is where she asks if she will go to heaven. So, sort of a mixture of biblical and technology of like, can robots conceive heaven? I mean, I'm not particularly a religious person by any means. I used to be, but I still find religion fascinating, for what it's worth. I mean, that's why I always review the Exorcist movies when they all come out, so I always, am willing to jump right back in, at least on that front. But I digress. It's sort of, again, picking apart these questions about, what is AI? Can they, if they are that level of advanced, is there, any distinction now between human and AI at this point, with her in particular? So yeah, definitely raising those questions, at least broadly speaking. And I do think that that is the highlight of this movie, while I do think that the skipping around is sort of what hurts the movie. Pretty roughly, too. Anyway, this is where the movie gets a little lost in the... at least I got lost in the plot, because suddenly they end up in space. Like, I don't know how the configuration they were led them to space, but yeah, they're there now. And surprise, surprise, humans are the ones who are sending the bombs now, and they're sending them everywhere. It's like, well, you were just blaming AI earlier in the movie, and yet you were willing to do the same exact thing, so who was to even say that was AI in the beginning? How would I even trust that information? Was that an unreliable narrator? I don't know. That's a really interesting question now that we clearly see that the humans are willing to quite just quite casually, I'd rather say, just drop a bunch of missiles from space. So yeah, that's what they're up to. But he is on one of the missiles, so she has to stop it. She does, just on, like, when it's on the, like, capsule thing to, like, send it down. So he's able to get away, at least for that. Alphys is, like, temporarily turned off, quote unquote. But and I guess he, like, makes his way back down. I really don't know how he gets back down from where he was, but he does. Or at least, no, he doesn't. I think I'm confused. Hold on. Let me just write my notes just in case. No. Sorry. I got confused. Yeah, no, he doesn't. Sorry. My bad. So he's, like, on one part of the ship, and she's on one other part of the ship. and he says that he will be in heaven. Uh, and she cries, and they separate, and the explosion happens, and he's on the side that explodes, so she is the one that remains. And I don't know. I feel like this ending of her smiling is a little bit inappropriate, quite frankly. After she like lands and she's like looking around and stuff, and then she just sort of smiles. I feel like from what literally just happened, I feel like there should have been a cut, and something else happens, and then that happens. I don't know. It just feels very, very off in terms of an ending there. But yeah, that was the creator, and I do apologize for keeping turning to the right there. But I do think that this movie re-engages some of these interesting questions about AI and technology, and I do think that this is a great time to raise these sorts of questions with where AI currently even is now with AI art, and even in certain levels of warfare. I think there's stuff with AI happening too, most definitely probably happening. I'd probably assume more so yes than rather no at this point. Um, so yeah, this is definitely an interesting time to re-evaluate what it is to be AI. Um, in terms of like how it had affected artists at the linchpin of that, and how that's still going. Actually, I find it a very interesting dilemma for, especially for artists. At least on that behalf. Uh, there's AI that can write, which would be struggling for someone like me who was a writer or and wants to continue to be a writer. Um, there's AI YouTuber stuff going on, and it's like, well, is the career that I've been attempting to build just not even beyond YouTube, not even helping with that at all, because it never helps smaller YouTubers anymore. Um, which is why I even started that petition in the first place, by the way. Um, but yeah, I think that it does dig into the bigger questions, at least in a broad sense. I do wish that the movie would have taken even a little bit more time at digging apart those broader questions and maybe lingering on them a little bit more, maybe chewing on some of those questions with like some retorts or other questions. I feel like that is actually where the movie gets interesting, and the story and plotting is where the movie, I feel, struggles a bit. I mean, again, they end up in space, and I really don't remember even how they got from where they were to that. Um, so yeah, I think that there could have been a way to gauge and get them from a point where humans are unironically doing what the AI were doing without compromising the story and plot in that way, but that would definitely take a little bit of reworking from what I can see and remember from the movie, as well as the time skips and him finding that spirituality from seemingly out of nowhere. Again, broadening that, it would have been. I think it would have been interesting, since he was bringing up spirituality and heaven. Have her continually test those things, like, what is spirituality? I mean, that doesn't I mean, that is part of heavenly stuff, but there's spirituality has like some stuff that like people believe in and might not even believe in necessarily God. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure there is that level of distinction, at least in America. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that were the case. Um, so yeah, I think that the movie again hits very broadly on these themes of AI and what that means if it were to get so close to human that the distinction is almost seemingly almost not there. Um, but again, I do think that the story and scripting to gauge us through these bigger questions is definitely something that needed to be improved upon a great deal. So I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10, and I know it's a bit harsh. Uh, I mean, this does seem to be an original movie, at least I think it is. Um, I don't know if it's like based off of a book, maybe. Um, I didn't look that up beforehand. I probably will after just to see. But I do feel like the branching path between finding the way to bridge the plotting of the story and still having those broader AI based questions could have been handled a lot more seamlessly throughout the movie. And I think that the whole cutting ahead part, even too, could have been completely removed. Just having them move even a slightly bit in terms of like transportation instead of like what seemed like, again, some weeks ahead or whatever, again, whatever amount of time passed. Um, and, explore why he would get into spirituality. I mean, sure, he seemed to be implying that he believed in heaven, I think. But he answers it so broadly. Peaceful place in the sky that I'm like, I mean, my almost assumption when he was saying that was like he's just saying that because it's like he's like looking at what he assumes is a kid at that point when he's saying that at the very most, and like trying to give a very baseline answer that doesn't seem to like that wouldn't like make it struggle to like understand that concept of what heaven is, or it's supposed to be anyway. Like that is the confusion to me, is like I don't know if that meant if he was always meant to be a religious character, or if he was again just simplifying it and then became religious at that point later on. I'm gonna assume the previous to be in good faith, but I don't think that came as crystal clear as it could have been in terms of at least from that explanation. And I mean, there are very obvious things you could have probably done, like have him have a cross on him or something, or I don't know. There's definitely little story things that you can like imply in the writing as well. Uh, Even in earlier parts of the movie, I feel like maybe during their way towards the mission, maybe he does like the little that bit for himself, like the little prayer hand motion. I don't know, like something to like establish it really early on that he's a religious guy. I don't know, something, right? Again, it doesn't have to be dialogue that he's like, oh, I believe in God. Like, it doesn't have to be that direct. Like, there are definitely other ways, as I mentioned, these little symbols or little motions that you can do that can provide that context really early on, so that way we're like, so he's religious. And then when he says the heaven thing, it's like, right, he was religious. That build up from before, now we see that he's also trying to simultaneously explain it to this robot child named, Elfie, and in a simple way, but it still correlates to a very that very earlier understanding of religion, instead of it seemingly again coming almost more so out of nowhere, or at least less so, or less. It's less harder to kind of see if that was what it was meant to be. Anyway, in terms again of the later time skip, I again just because he looks drastically different. I'm not really sure why they did that. Unnecessarily so, because it feels like it could have been condensed within a singular timeline, or at least at the very minimum, like I don't feel like they needed to do too many flashbacks here, and they didn't, quite frankly. But I still don't get it the time skip forward anyway. So yeah, those issues abided. I still think that this movie has enough interesting elements to warrant that 5. Like, I almost want to push it to that 6 out of 10 almost in that way. But I feel like there's just enough of gaps in the story and main plot, and even the bigger vague questions, I feel like they just don't dig into them enough to warrant even that 6 or even 7 possibility score. So yeah, that's my full review of The Creator. I think it's middling. So yeah, that's my review, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second, third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth, to my Discord server, you can join me and my server and do all that cool collab stuff and shilling for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!